continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
CannabisRadio.com presents The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hey, this is great, man.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
All right, welcome, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Monday, December 7th, 2015, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. It also has to be a day that shall live forever in infamy. The anniversary of the Japanese sneak attack on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii in 1941 that ushered the United States into World War II. My grandfather on my mother's side fought for the United States in the Pacific Theater, so every Pearl Harbor Day I tend to remember Grandpa and his sacrifices to fight for freedom. And speaking of freedom, the people who do not learn from their history may be doomed to repeat it. Lately, Donald Trump, Republican GOP frontrunner, has made all sorts of comments about Muslims and immigration, and today he has said that he wants to ban all Muslims from immigrating into the United States. Careful, folks. If we're not careful, we might all end up wearing Trump brand brown shirts soon. My God, can't believe this stuff. But it's a marijuana show here. We're going to talk about marijuana, and in the show today, we've got our regular visit with Dr. Mitch Earlywine in our Cannabis Q&A segment. That'll be coming up at 1:30, and you can call in live during that segment if you've got a question on cannabis science, culture, history, or health for Dr. Mitch Earlywine, acclaimed author and researcher, and the chairman of the Normal Board of Directors. Also a pretty good stand-up comedian as well. But you can call in at 971-533-7111. That's our live studio line. And we'll also take your calls after 4 o'clock Pacific time in our Hour 2 Toker Talk Radio. So stay tuned for that. Among our topics for Dr. Mitch today, we've got that study claiming that super potent marijuana may harm our brains. Another study showing that legalized medical marijuana leads to skinnier states. We've got a study confirming what we know about CBD oil and childhood epilepsy. Another couple of studies that will fight liver cancer and dermatomyositis. Never heard of it. We'll have to ask Dr. Mitch what that is. That's all coming up on our Cannabis Q&A at 1:30. Then we'll get into time for a radical rant, which today I'm taking a look at 8 different state legalization initiatives. 8 different state legalization initiatives. We've got the 5 states, California, Arizona, Massachusetts, Maine, and Nevada. We got 4 different initiatives we're going to look at in California and 1 each in the other 4 states. We're going to compare and contrast those with the legalization that currently exists in 4 states and Washington, D.C. Stay tuned for that coming up in the Radical Rant. Also on the show today in Drug War Data Mining, we're going to take a look at felony disenfranchisement. This is where states ban felons from being able to vote and how that affects our elections and how it disproportionately affects communities of color. That's coming up in Drug War Data Mining. Before that, we've got Behind the Headlines, where we're going to talk about 60 Minutes, the CBS News program, which yesterday had an amazing 2-part segment on the use of college kids as criminal informants in marijuana cases. It talked about the Rachel Hoffman case, which was one of the first cases I ever covered getting into the marijuana media way back in 2008. I got to interview some of her friends who talked about missing their friend, Rachel. But before we get to all that, we've got the Cannabis Radio News in the headlines today. We got a lot of international headlines. We're going to go to Uruguay, to Chile, to Australia, America, the state of Georgia, and Dallas, Texas. Stay tuned. It's all coming up on the Russ Belville Show.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
The son of a Polish immigrant who grew up in a Brooklyn tenement. He went to public schools, then college. where the work of his life began, fighting injustice and inequality, speaking truth to power. He moved to Vermont, won election and praise as one of America's best mayors. In Congress, he stood up for working families and for principle, opposing the Iraq War, supporting veterans. Now he's taking on Wall Street and a corrupt political system, funded by over 1 million contributions, tackling climate change to create clean energy jobs, fighting for living wages, equal pay, and tuition-free public colleges.
People are sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Bernie Sanders, husband, father, grandfather, an honest leader, building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
It's time for the Cannabis Radio News. Covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Cannabis Radio News is now available exclusively at cannabisradio.com. Now your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This is Cannabis Radio News.
This is your Cannabis Radio News for Monday, December 7th, 2015. Uruguayans will be able to choose from 3 varieties of state-sanctioned cannabis when marijuana starts being sold in pharmacies in the small South American country next year, the National Drug Board said Saturday. The government declined to specify the names of the 3 varieties. Uruguay became the first country to legalize the cultivation and distribution of marijuana in late 2013. Authorities have developed traceable, genetically distinct plants to ensure they do not leave Uruguay's borders or end up on the black market. Marijuana will be sold in Uruguay at about $1 per gram, with locals allowed to buy up to 40 grams per month. Uruguay has granted marijuana growing licenses to 2 companies and so far registered 3,200 people who can grow up to 6 plants for personal use. Chilean President Michelle Bachelet signed a measure for removing marijuana from a list of dangerous drugs. The move comes after years of legal limbo for Chilean cancer patients and other victims of illness and injury who couldn't legally purchase the plant or its THC-laden products, which are prescribed by doctors to relieve pain. While pot consumption has been decriminalized in Chile for some time, users, including pain patients, have still faced negative repercussions. As recently as November, a mother was separated from her newborn child due to smoking pot, according to the BBC. Bachelet's executive action might ensure that some of the red tape is removed from the green medication, as the rule also allowed for medical marijuana to be sold in pharmacies. It also coincides with a legislative push to legalize marijuana for recreational use. Legislation to allow medicinal cannabis to be grown and manufactured in Victoria, Australia, will be introduced into the state parliament today, and children with epilepsy are expected to be given first access. The Andrews government said during the 2014 election campaign that it wanted to make cannabis legal and available to those with ill health in exceptional circumstances. The Queensland, Australia government announced earlier this year that a trial to treat children with epilepsy with medicinal cannabis would take place in that state in 2016. Health Minister Jill Hennessy said access to the drug would be rolled out gradually and eventually be made available to palliative care and those with HIV. Want to take a bite out of the American obesity epidemic? Legalize medical marijuana. That's the counterintuitive finding of a new study in the Journal of Health Economics. Researchers from San Diego State University and Cornell University found that at the state level, passing a medical marijuana law, quote, is associated with a 2% to 4% decline in the probability of obesity, end quote. Over the longer term, this effect could even be larger. Tally it all up, and according to the study's authors, quote, we estimate a back-of-the-envelope per-person reduction in medical marijuana law-induced obesity-related medical costs of $58 to $115 per year. According to Georgians for Freedom in Healthcare, a new statewide poll just released shows 84.5% approve of expanding the Georgia low-THC medical marijuana law to allow for in-state cultivation and production of cannabis under strict regulation and security. Currently, Georgia law allows permits to patients with certain illnesses to obtain medical cannabis, but it cannot be grown or produced in the state. Georgia Governor Nathan Deal recently expressed concerns with the idea and said he is yet to see evidence there is a proper way to legalize cultivation in the state. An expansion of the medical marijuana bill will be pushed by Representative Alan Peake and others during the next legislative session in January. Members of the Georgia Commission on Medical Cannabis will put together a report on how to cultivate and produce medical marijuana in Georgia and then present it to Governor Deal for consideration. Dallas, Texas city officials will discuss whether police should haul the person off to jail or just write a ticket for marijuana, so-called cite and release, at tomorrow's Public Safety Committee meeting. They'll consider a pilot program that would try out the law enforcement approach in Dallas. If adopted, it could result in hundreds of fewer arrests. Dallas police arrest between 100 and 120 people for possessing small amounts of marijuana every month, according to the committee briefing. A Texas law passed by the legislature in 2007 made cite and release possible for certain Class A and B misdemeanors. This has been your Cannabis Radio News for Monday, December 7th, 2015. I'm Russ Belville. Imagine life without taxes. Let New Era Certified Public Accountants, NewEraCPAs.com, handle your Cannabusiness 280E and tax strategy. Get your business prepared with New Era CPA's Cannabis Finance Bootcamp. NewEraCPAs.com, with years of experience in the industry, we are one of the nation's leading accounting firms for growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies from Washington to California. NewEraCPAs.com.
Get the latest updates on The Russ Belville Show by following Radical Russ on Twitter and liking The Russ Belville Show on Facebook.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping Ganjapreneurs grow.
I want to talk about a fantastic episode of 60 Minutes that appeared last night. And if you can get onto CBS online or on demand, you should check this out, because Leslie Stahl, in the first two segments of 60 Minutes, did a extensive investigation into the use of criminal informants, particularly college kids, that are recruited before they're arrested, before their rights are read to them, without any lawyer, without any parents present. These college kids that get caught dealing a few grams of marijuana then get sucked in to the criminal investigation, the criminal informant system, where they are then made to wear a wire and go undercover, set up their fellow college students for drug buys to get them busted. And after getting a certain number of drug buys, they then get out of their particular charges. They spoke to two North Dakota college students. One of them was a young man who was pressured to wear a wire and make 6 drug buys. And rather than face the maximum prison sentence of 40 years in prison, that student's name was Andrew Sadek, and he was able to do 3 of the buys, and then was found dead with a gunshot wound to the head in a river near the college campus. It's not known how he got the gunshot wound. It's theorized that one of the students may have found out he was a snitch and execute him, but nobody knows at this point. Another student who was profiled at North Dakota State University was Matt Sander. He refused the deal and walked out of the police department, which is exactly what you should do. Because one of the tricks they play here, and 60 Minutes made a good point of pointing this out, is that when a cop arrests you, when you're detained or you're arrested and a cop is arresting you, questions that are material to the investigation, they have to inform you that you have a right to an attorney and you have the right to remain silent, the so-called Miranda warnings. But if they haven't arrested you and they're not asking you any questions having to do with your crime, they don't have to inform you that you need a lawyer or you can remain silent. So they catch these kids with personal amounts of marijuana or other drugs. They bring them into a scary police interrogation room and they say, look, we're going to have to charge you with all these drug crimes, but if you want to help yourself, then what you can do is agree to sign this piece of paper here that makes you a criminal informant, and you agree to go do this many drug busts, and then we agree to not charge you. That has nothing to do with the crime, has nothing to do with being arrested. He's not arrested at that point, so the cops can make that offer and pressure these kids, pressure these young people into accepting the offer before they've talked to a lawyer, before they've talked to their parents. And in the offer, there are confidentiality stipulations. They can't talk to a lawyer or their parents or anyone else. So, yes, Andrew Sadak was found killed after being involved in one of these. Matt Sander refused the deal, walked out of the police department, got a lawyer, and was eventually sentenced to 2 years probation and $800 in court fees. And that's what would happen to most of these kids that are busted. First-time nonviolent offenders, small personal amounts. They're going to get probation. They're going to get court fees. They're going to get some sort of community service, perhaps. But that's not what the cops tell them in that scary interrogation room. They tell them, oh, you're facing felony sales, and you're going to get 20 years. You're going to get 40 years. They focused also on the case of Rachel Hoffman. Rachel Hoffman was the first case of this type I had covered, and it was barely a month into my activism when the story of this 23-year-old college student who'd been busted with, she had 5 ounces of weed, and she had been selling weed to her friends, as many people do. Most of the purchases of marijuana are between friends. But because she got caught a second time, the Tallahassee Police Department decided to set her up on a drug deal to go buy 1,500 tablets of ecstasy, cocaine, and a gun. They gave her $13,000, sent her to a park where they were supposed to be watching her. The drug dealers took her to another location. The cops lost track of her, and when the drug dealers found the wire in her purse, they shot her 5 times in the back of the head and dumped her body in a creek 50 miles away. So it's time to end the use of confidential informants, especially on our college campuses. People are dying.
This is bullshit. It's like Cypress Hill concert in here.
Well, that sound means it's 20 after the hour. It's 3:20 live here in Rolla J Studios. That means it's 4:20 back in my birth city of Nampa, Idaho, where marijuana is still very illegal. In fact, in Idaho, it's illegal to merely be high in public. You don't even have to possess marijuana to get busted for it in Idaho. Happy 420, Idahoans.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
Your connection to quality cannabis insurance services is spelled K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R. That's Karcher Insurance. We have worked with ventures like cannabis for over 60 years. We're proud to represent over 50 companies with tailor-made cannabis plans for owners just like you to insure your product, your plants, and your pursuits. K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R spells out their full-service insurance services ranging from commercial to bonds to personal, from life to health, and more. Contact the team at KarcherInsurance.com and let our experience work for you. That's K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R Insurance.com.
Contact Karen and the team at Karcher Insurance at 1-844-421-3560. That's 844-421-3560.
Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining. Today in the Drug War Data Mines, we take a look at felony disenfranchisement. This is information that comes from the Sentencing Project. I'd encourage you to look them up online. But some of the basics. Felony disenfranchisement is when a state takes away your right to vote based on the fact that you've committed a felony. We have almost 6 million Americans, 5.85 million Americans, who cannot vote in this country because they've been convicted of felony offenses. Now, people have different opinions on this as far as whether or not felons should be able to vote. There are some folks who believe that if you've committed a felony, the most serious type of crime that we have, then you should lose certain freedoms, including your right to vote. But there are 2 states in the United States that do not agree with that. In Maine and Vermont, you can vote from prison. You can be the most heinous death row murderer, sex offender, arsonist, rapist, doesn't matter. You can still vote. And there's a certain argument for that. Considering that we found so many people that have been exonerated of their crimes that there may indeed be innocent people in prison. And so why should they lose their right to vote? But most people are along the spectrum of believing that if you've committed a serious crime, you should lose certain rights, and perhaps voting is one of them. But it differs based on state. In the states of Hawaii, Illinois, Indiana, Massachusetts, Michigan, Montana, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Utah, you only lose your right to vote while you're in prison. Once you're outside the prison walls, you get your right to vote back. And there are so many people who are in those states who don't believe they can sign an initiative petition or vote because they're convicted felons, when in fact they can. In California, Colorado, Connecticut, and New York, you cannot vote while you're in prison or while you're on parole. But if you're on probation, you can vote. States that prohibit prison, parole, and probation voting include Alaska, Arkansas, Georgia, Idaho, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Minnesota, Missouri, New Jersey, New Mexico, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, Washington, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. So as long as you're on paper, as they call it, you can't vote. But once you're off papers, once you no longer have parole or probation, you can vote. And then there's the 12 states that deny voting to felony convicts during prison, parole, probation, and post-sentence. After they've completed their entire society, they still don't have their right to vote. That includes Alabama, Arizona, Delaware, Florida, Iowa, Kentucky, Mississippi, Nebraska, Nevada, Tennessee, Virginia, and Wyoming. Now, there are some differences in this. Some of those states, it's a 5-year waiting period, like Wyoming and Florida, and you can then apply to the governor or clemency board to get or a voting board to get your right back. They don't have to give it back to you. Virginia and Nebraska have 2-year waiting periods, and for some of these, it requires a second or subsequent offense, or it depends on the type of offense. Nonviolent offenses don't count. But generally speaking, because of these laws, 5.85 million Americans cannot vote. 45% of them live in those 12 states that I just mentioned. And 75% of the people who cannot vote currently live in their communities, either on probation, parole, or have completed their sentence. There are 2.6 million Americans in those states, those 12 states I mentioned, where they cannot vote even after they've completed all of their sentence. This, of course, just disproportionately affects communities of color. Black Americans of voting age are more than 4 times more likely to lose their voting rights. 1 of every 13 black adults
is disenfranchised. 1 in every 13. And in 3 states, Florida, Kentucky, and Virginia, more than 1 in 5 black adults is disenfranchised. In total, 2.2 million black citizens are banned from voting. 23% in Florida, 22% in Kentucky, 20% in Virginia. Now, we know that black Americans tend to overwhelmingly, about 90%, vote Democratic. So how much different would the state legislatures, the congressional representation, the governorship, and the federal representation be from those states if those millions of black people were able to vote and likely to be voting democratically? This is not just an opinion that I've come up with. There have been studies on this, and one study found that disenfranchisement policies may have likely affected the results of 7 U.S. Senate races from 1970 to 1998, as well as the 2000 Bush v. Gore presidential election. If disenfranchised voters in Florida alone had been permitted to vote, Bush's narrow victory, quote, would almost certainly have been reversed, end quote. And since you can get a felony for 21 grams of pot in Florida, we know that had a huge effect on how many Floridians were able to vote for Gore or vote for Bush. And since 23% of the Floridians disenfranchised are black, and we know they would have overwhelmingly voted for Al Gore, it is not a stretch to say that marijuana prohibition gave us President George W. Bush. You can get this as a document up on the sentencingproject.org. Please check them out. Great website. When we come back, we'll have Dr. Mitch on the line. Get your questions ready at 971-533-7111.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals, or at least they pay me to say that. A public service message from CannabisRadio.com and the Russ Belville Show.
MJWellness.com, the largest medical marijuana community in the world. Connect with thousands of patients, doctors, industry leaders, and businesses through shared personal experiences along our worldwide network. Discover new therapies and benefits with content tailored to you. Come grow your network on MJWellness.com. You're not alone. Your wellness matters. Learn, live, and thrive. Check out MJWellness.com today.
It's time for the Russ Belville Show's Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Dr. Earlywine is a professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany and a leading author and researcher on cannabinoids and health, who pins the Ask Dr. Mitch column for High Times Magazine. Get your questions ready in our live chat or call in to 971-533-7111 now.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 31 after the hour. We got Dr. Mitch on the line from SUNY Albany. How you doing, Dr. Mitch?
Unfortunately, I'm at the doctor with my daughter, Russ. It's been one of those crazy nights, but I'll catch you guys next week if that'll work out.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I didn't realize, and yeah, we'll pull something up from the archives, and best of luck and wishes to you.
All right. I emailed, but it was last minute, so sorry, man.
No problem. Good luck for everything.
Talk to you later.
Yeah, and everyone, make sure you check out Dr. Mitch's podcast, Burning Issues. It's available here on CannabisRadio.com. We're going to take a break so that I can pull something else up for us to listen to since Dr. Mitch has a family emergency. And my thanks, of course, to Dr. Mitch for being so willing to be able to even answer the cell phone during that kind of a problem. Hope everything is okay. Also, stay tuned because in hour 2, Toker Talk Radio will take your calls at 971-533-7111. We got a few things to talk about. One, Marijuana Anonymous in the legal marijuana states. How are they dealing with newly legal marijuana? We've got a story from the military, a Congressional Medal of Honor winner who fought the enemy while high and admits it. And we'll take a look at Asian Americans in the cannabis industry. I'm Radical Russ. We're right back after this.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, we've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter.
Hey everybody, Radical Russ on the beach here in the grill. And I had this young man say he liked my tattoo of the United States. And he's from Austin, Texas. Tell folks as much as you want to tell them about yourself. Name or...
Well, hey, my name's Brooks. I'm from Austin, Texas. And hopefully then I'll be able to get some weed there
Yeah,
soon,
we'll work on that. Is this your first time in Jamaica?
It's my second time. I went to Ocho Rios before when I was
Really?
like 10.
10 years old?
Yeah.
And what, you're like 14
it's a lot
now?
more laid back here, man. People hassle you there.
How old are you?
19.
I was going to say 14 now? I'm so old though, everybody looks young.
Yeah.
So yeah, second time in a decade. So you're 10 years old, you came out here, you're 19 coming out here for the Cannabis Cup. You're in Austin, Texas, which is, if you're going to be in Austin, or if you're going to be in Texas and be a toker, Austin's the place to be.
Well, I tell you, last time I came here getting weed,
yeah,
they were like, hey man, you need weed. Like it was real sketchy and like it would be in, the US if
Sure.
you don't know somebody, but now it's like, hey man, you want some
back.
ganja?
Yeah, it's been plenty of ganja, but as you were saying, it's kind of sticky and hard to roll because it's all so fresh.
Yeah, they don't really cure it right, and they got a lot of sticks and seeds.
Yeah.
People in the U.S. might not think it's good, but it's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty damn good.
Very natural. And what I like about it is
it ain't no Mexican Reggie or nothing.
No. It's tasty. It's very tasty. Nice on that. We're hoping we get Texas legalized pretty soon. Do you go to school in Austin?
I'm a security guard. I'm working up
Right on.
that I can get some money so that I can go to school.
Yeah. So is it like, would you like to be a part of the green rush in the states that are already legal, like move to Colorado or something like that, or are you going to stick to Texas and make it legal there?
I like the other states, but I'm not going to go moving.
Right on.
I'm waiting for Texas and the rest of the general South area to get some weed.
Yeah.
I mean, they already have weed. It's just not okay.
So your friends jealous you come out here to Jamaica?
Yeah, man, but they all went to the one in Denver.
Right. You didn't go to that one?
No, I didn't.
Oh yeah, I was there too. It was.
There doesn't seem to be a lot here though.
It's pretty nice out here. Gotta say. One thing about when it was in Denver is it's just so packed, so crowded. Here it's just outdoors and open and kind of laid back.
Are they gonna actually bring some weed though? Do you know about that?
I don't know.
I heard that they got delayed or something.
Oh, well, it must be on the way. I'm sure weed will show up. It's a High Times Cannabis Cup.
I hope so. I want to get something other than spliffs.
No doubt. Anything else you want to say to the folks out there? Say hi to your pals in Austin.
Well, man, just say hi to my mom, but
hi, Mom.
It's all good.
All right.
I don't really have much else to say, man. Just have a good time with yourself.
Right on, man. I will. Thank you.
Right now, marijuana is listed by the federal government as a Schedule I drug, meaning that it is considered to be as dangerous as heroin. That is absurd. In my view, the time is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana. In my view, states should have the right to regulate marijuana the same way that state and local laws now govern the sale of alcohol and tobacco. And among other things, that means that recognized businesses in states that have legalized marijuana should be fully able to use the banking system without fear of federal prosecution. In addition, in those states that decide to go forward, and I'm not here advocating that states do it, that is the decision of the individual states within our federal system. But those states that choose to go forward can then tax alcohol like they can tax marijuana, like they tax alcohol and cigarettes, and in fact earn a substantial amount of money. Colorado is making right now about $50 million a year through the taxation of marijuana. And in Colorado, and I believe other states, some of that revenue is being used to fight the effects of substance abuse, of hard drugs like opiates that are harming so many communities. In the year 2015, it is time for the federal government to allow states to go forward as they best choose. It is time to tax and regulate marijuana like alcohol. It is time to end the arrests of so many people and the destruction of so many lives for possessing marijuana.
Radical Russ here at the Northwest Cannabis Classic here in Portland, Oregon. We've made our way to Mimi's Medibles of Estacada, Oregon. Hi, Mimi's Medibles. How are you?
We are doing wonderful.
Tell folks about your product line here. I see you've got what looks like to be iced tea.
All right, I'll give you the spiel from the beginning. We start with our organic raw sugar cane and green only. No CO2, no BHO, no oils, no additives. It's just sugar and green. We end up with raw organic infused sugar cane and our tasty nugs. Everybody is shocked. We get the, oh my God, what is that face every time we show this to people. You eat this. This is not for smoking. It's an edible that you eat. And it's super sweet, easy on the stomach, and really nice. So then on top of that, we have our glass candy fruits. It's an old school glass candy, so just an infused sugar-coated fruit that's really tasty, another edible. And we have a tallow salve. So the tallow is infused with cannabis, comfrey, and plantain, and then some variety of oils to help your body absorb the medicinal qualities. So.
All right. So do you use this to infuse this, the iced tea?
The sugar you can use like anything you would use sugar for. Coffee, tea, baking, making honey mead, making anything you can imagine possible with sugar. Your imagination is the limit, and we want to help people to make their own stuff. You don't have to rely on everybody else to make you a chocolate you might not like. Come get our sugar, and you can make whatever you want.
I like it. Mimi's Medibles, Estacada, Oregon. Give people some contact information if they want to find you online.
So we are not doing a website currently. We're still waiting for OLCC to get everything figured out. We have an email, info, Mimi Sugar, INFO, MIMISUGAR @gmail.com.
All All right, we'll look forward to that website when you get it out there, and love that you're making this medicated sugar for people to be able to make their own edibles out of. That's pretty cool. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com, where we don't change our mind on decriminalization during an election year.
Hey everybody, Radical Russ here at the Northwest Cannabis Classic here in Portland, Oregon finally. And we've come upon the booth for Empower. Tell folks who you are and what Empower is all about.
Empower Body Care. We are a cannabis-infused topical company. We have CBD and THCA and CBD products, roll-on, pain reliever. We also have Empower for Play, which is a sensual oil. That one's a lot of fun, my first fun product. And therapeutic soaking salts for all that ails you.
All right. Now, Trista, you've been doing this for a long time, and how does it feel moving from the activism side of things to the business side of things?
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, because now I get to be an activist with my dollars.
So if people want to get a hold of some of this Empower stuff, where do they go online?
Well, they can go to my website, www.empowerbodycare.com.
Far out. Trista Ockel, thank you so much for being here, and we'll get some photos.
Thanks, Russ.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
That marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug.
Some think there won't be room for them in jail. We'll make room.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
And one major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Radical Rant. Welcome back, everybody. Today in the rant, we are going to take a look at marijuana legalization that is approaching in 2016 and compare it to the marijuana legalization that currently exists in 2015. And we'll take a look at this with respect to the point of view of a cannabis consumer. There's a lot of differences once we start getting to the licensing and the commercial cultivation and sales. A lot of details there, and we'll save that for another time. Today, we're just going to take a look at this from the perspective of someone who just wants to smoke pot, maybe grow a little pot of their own, maybe have a place to go buy some pot. So, in our comparison, we'll start with the two states that passed in 2012, Colorado's Amendment 64 and Washington State's Initiative 502. And then, of course, we've got the three jurisdictions that passed in 2014, Oregon's Measure 91 and its House Bill 3400 amendments, Alaska's Issue 2, also known as the Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, or CRMLA, and Washington, D.C.'s Initiative 71. And we'll compare these to 8 other initiatives that are pending in 5 other states for 2016. We'll start with Nevada's CRMLA, Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. And understand CRMLA is the branding that shows you that Marijuana Policy Project is behind that initiative. So Nevada's CRMLA is already on the ballot. Massachusetts CRMLA has turned in enough signatures to make the ballot, but it hasn't made the ballot yet. There's a 2-step process in Massachusetts where they first have to put it forth to the legislature, and then if the legislature doesn't approve it, then they got to get another 10,000 or so signatures, and then it makes the ballot. But the other campaign, Bay State Repeal, has already conceded they don't have enough signatures to make the ballot. So there's just one possibility in Massachusetts, the CRMLA. In Maine, there's also just one possibility. It's Legalize Maine, and that's because Maine's CRMLA folded its campaign and decided to get behind Legalize Maine. So there's one opportunity in the state of Maine. Now, in the state of Arizona, there are still technically two possibilities, the Arizonans for Mindful Regulation and Arizona's CRIMLA. But again, Arizona's CRIMLA has talked about turning in enough signatures, and we haven't heard anything from Arizonans for Mindful Regulation on their signature counts. So for this comparison, we're going to stick to just Arizona's CRIMLA. And then in the state of California, we got 4 different possibilities, and there are more than that have been filed. But for the purposes of time and which measures are best known, I'm going to limit it to just 4. That's going to include the California Adult Use of Marijuana Act, so-called Sean Parker Initiative, California CCPR, which is the Coalition for Cannabis Policy Reform, whose act is called the Control, Regulation, and Taxation Act of Marijuana, and the campaign group is called Reform California. That's the Dale Sky Jones-led group that makes up a lot of the activism base in California. Then we'll also take a look at California's MCLR, the Marijuana Control, Legalization, and Regulation Act. And finally, California's CCHI, the California Cannabis Hemp Initiative, also known as the so-called Jack Herer Initiative. This gives us 13 different legalization plans to look at, and I'll give you an idea from a consumer's point of view what's been going right and what's been going wrong in these legalization plans. We'll start with the legalization of personal possession of flower. How much marijuana can I have in public? And across the board, with a few exceptions, it's an ounce. In all the currently legal states, 1 ounce. In Nevada, Massachusetts, Arizona, and 2 of the California initiatives, 1 ounce. The only differences? Washington, D.C. allows possession of 2 ounces. Legalized Maine will allow 2.5 ounces. California's Jack Herer Initiative will allow 12 pounds. And the MCLR doesn't have a specific limit, but a limit will be set by the commission. Then we get into the question of edibles and liquids, infused edibles, infused liquids, and here's a case where most of the states are doing this wrong. Washington and Oregon have gotten it right. Washington and Oregon allow for 16 ounces of edibles and 72 ounces of infused liquids. California Cannabis Hemp Initiative, Jack Herer Initiative, allows for 12 pounds of these things. But in every other state, they didn't make specific allowances for edibles or liquids except to allow the current marijuana amount in those edibles or liquids. For example, in Colorado, you can have edibles or liquids, but there can only be 1 ounce of marijuana in them. In Washington, D.C., there can be 2 ounces of marijuana in them. In Maine, there can be 2.5 ounces of marijuana in them. And that, of course, begs the question, how is a cop supposed to know how much marijuana is in a plate of brownies or a bag of cookies or a sack of gummy bears? You wouldn't know how much THC was in it until you took it to a lab. But even measuring how much THC is in it doesn't tell you how much marijuana went into it. So I think that part of those laws is going to be very hard to enforce. What about concentrates, hash oil, hashish, extracts? Well, in Washington, D.C., they are still specifically illegal. In Washington State, you're allowed 7 grams. In Colorado and Alaska, you're allowed 1 ounce. And in Oregon, our initiative that allowed 1 ounce of extracts was modified so that that only applies to extracts made with volatile hydrocarbons, or CO2, under high heat and pressure. That is the anes, butane, hexane, propane. If you're making hash oils with those, there can be 1 ounce. And you're not making them. I should be very clear about that. They have to be store-bought. It is illegal to process them on your own. But if it's hash, like finger hash or ice water hash or bubble hash or rosin press, anything not made with explosive hydrocarbons, you can have 1 pound of that in the state of Oregon. As for the states coming up, Nevada will allow 7 grams of concentrate, Massachusetts 5 grams, Maine 2.5 ounces, Arizona 5 grams, Sean Parker Initiative 4 grams, CCPR 1 ounce, And, of course, Jack Herer initiative will allow 12 pounds of concentrate. Another consideration is the possibility of getting a marijuana possession felony. Is it possible? None of the California initiatives will allow for a marijuana possession felony because California itself does not allow for a marijuana possession felony even now. You have to have intent to sell or deliver. Massachusetts CRIMLA will not contain a marijuana possession felony, and in Oregon and Washington, D.C., there is no marijuana possession felony. But in the following states, you can still get a felony for mere possession. In Colorado, more than 12 ounces. In Washington State, more than 40 grams. In Alaska, more than 4 ounces. In Nevada, more than an ounce if it's your fourth offense. In Maine, more than a pound. And in Arizona, more than 2.5 ounces. Those amounts will still get you a possession felony even after legalization. How about home grow? Well, of course, the worst state as far as home grow is concerned is Washington State because it does not allow for any home grow of marijuana. Most states top out at 6 plants. Colorado, 3 mature, 3 immature. Oregon, 4 plants. Alaska, 3 mature, 3 immature, but they're also allowed 25 plants under their privacy rights. Washington, D.C., 3 mature, 3 immature with a household limit of 12. Nevada's initiative's tricky because it says you have the right to cultivate 6 plants and a household limit of 12, but that's only if you live more than 25 miles from a pot shop. They have a halo in the Nevada CRIMLA. Massachusetts, 6 plants with a limit of 12 per household. Maine, 6 mature plants, 12 immature plants, and unlimited seedlings. Arizona, 6 plants, household limit of 12. California Sean Parker, 6 plants. California CCPR, 100 square foot canopy. California MCLR, a personal use amount. And the Jack Herer initiative would allow 99 flowering plants and unlimited immature plants. Then, how much marijuana, if you're going to be harvesting marijuana from your plants, how much can you possess at home? Well, under the best of these laws, they allow you to possess the results of your harvests. So however many plants you're growing, whatever you harvest, you're allowed to possess. That would include all of the California amendments except Jack Herer, but Jack Herer allows 12 pounds. Nevada, Massachusetts, Maine, and Arizona all allow results of the harvest. Alaska and Colorado currently allow results of the harvest. But Washington State, of course, doesn't allow for any home grow. So technically you can still possess your ounce at home. Oregon limits your home grow to 8 ounces possession. And Washington, D.C. allows you 2 ounces of possession. Next, the consideration of personal use clubs. Can there be a place where marijuana consumers can gather to consume marijuana together? In Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, D.C., that is not allowed, although places have been trying to get away with it by doing volunteer clubs. Washington State has gone as far as felonizing these types of clubs, while Alaska has just approved these types of clubs. As far as the other 8 initiatives in the other 5 states, all of them have some measure of allowance for personal use clubs. Nevada, the legislature can permit them. Massachusetts, they may allow licensing. In Maine, retail social clubs are expressly allowed. In Arizona, the legislature could start approving personal use clubs in 2020. California Sean Parker and Reform California both allow localities to license on-site consumption. California MCLR allows on-site consumption with commission licensing. And Jack Herer initiative allows clubs to the same extent that beer and wine clubs are allowed. Next consideration for marijuana consumers would be marijuana DUIDs. None of the new states that are trying to pass marijuana legalization have a per se DUID in their law. There already exists a per se DUID in Nevada, but it's not being changed in any way by the new law. And of course, Colorado has a 5 nanogram presumptive DUID. Washington has a 5 nanogram per se DUID. Another consideration is the protection of our rights as cannabis consumers. And currently, in the legal states and D.C., there is no protection for our right to work, our right to our house, to housing, our right to child custody, or our right to organ transplants. In other states, they are starting to protect these rights. Employment protections exist in Massachusetts, Maine, and California MCLR and Jack Herer. Housing protection exists in Arizona and California Jack Herer. Child custody is protected from Massachusetts, Maine, Arizona, and all of the California initiatives except Sean Parker. And transplant protection is protected in Massachusetts, Arizona, and the Jack Herer initiative. And finally, can localities ban marijuana commerce? Could they ban pot shops? In Colorado, they can be banned by ordinance or popular vote. In Washington, they're banned. In Oregon, they're banned by popular vote, except the counties that voted more than 55% against Measure 91 can ban by ordinance. Alaska requires a popular vote. Washington, D.C., it doesn't matter because they don't have marijuana commerce. Nevada prevents local bans. They allow local zoning, but not local bans. Massachusetts can ban by popular vote. Maine, by ordinance or by popular vote. Arizona, by popular vote. California, Sean Parker, by ordinance until 2019, and then by popular vote. California Reform CA, CCPR, by ordinance, no vote of the people required. California MCLR, by popular vote if your town is 10,000 or more. If it's smaller than that, then by ordinance. And Jack Herer initiative will not allow bans that are any more onerous than the bans on beer and wine. We'll be publishing this as a table up on hightimes.com and other outlets, so check that out, my comparison of the upcoming 2016 legalization initiatives. For everyone here at CannabisRadio.com and Rolla J Studios, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.